Madhavati ti bhakti janani jatane palana kori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adhare boli. Gora mara shisabastane Koralo Brahmanarange. Sesavastana Heriboami Panai Bhakata Sange. Mridanga Bhadya Sunite Mana Avasara Sadajate. Gora Bihita Kirtana Suni Anande Hridaya Nache. Jugala Murti Dekhiya Mora Parama Ananda Hoya. Prasada Seva Korite Hoya Sakala Prapancha Jaya. Vedina Grihe Bhajana Deki Golokatana Vihete Golokapana. Vedina Grihe Bhajana Deki Vihete Golokapaya. Charana Sedu Dekhiya Ganga Sukana Simana Paya. Tulasi Deki Turaya Pana Madhavato Sanidhani. Gora Priya Saka Sevane Divana Sakara Divana Sakamani. Bhakati Vino Krishna Bhajane Anukula Payajan. Patidivase Paramasuke Shikara Karo Yeta. Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. Bhakata Seva Paramasiddhi Premalati Karumula. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dust from the lotus feet of pure devotees is conducive to devotional service, while service to the Vaishnavas is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of divine love. I observe with great care the holidays like Ekadasi and Janmashtami, for they are the mother of devotion. As my dwelling place, I choose with the greatest of reverence and love the transcendental abode of Sri Krishna. All those places where my Lord Gaurasundar traveled for pastimes, I will visit in the company of loving devotees. My mind always begs for the opportunity to hear the music of the mridanga. Upon hearing the kind of kirtan ordained by Lord Gaurachandra, my heart dances in ecstasy. By beholding the deity forms of the divine couple Sri Sri Radha Krishna, I feel the greatest joy. By honoring the Lord's prasad, I conquer over all worldly illusions. Goloka Vrindavan appears in my home whenever I see the worship and service of Lord Hari going on there. Upon seeing the Ganges, which is a river of nectar emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, my happiness knows no bounds. The sight of the holy Tulasi tree soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. By honoring Sak, a dear favorite of Lord Chaitanya, I consider life worthwhile. Whatever Bhaktivinoda obtains that is conducive for the service of Sri Krishna, he accepts every day with the greatest of joy. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Srila Prabhupada. Hare So today we are reading from Sri Chaitanya, from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam. It is from the volume 4. It's a biography of Srila Prabhupada written by Satsvarupadas Goswami. The chapter is entitled Jet Age Parivajakacharya. The date is 12th of May, 1971. Srila Prabhupada is now in Australia. In his quarters in Sydney, Prabhupada wrote the preface to the upcoming edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The Macmillan Company had now agreed to print the unabridged manuscript. The contract was signed. The book was being readied for printing. Only the preface remained to be written. So this Macmillan Company in America, they had already printed an abridged edition. But Prabhupada was not satisfied with the abridged edition. It is not the complete Bhagavad Gita as it is. So now this new edition is coming up, and in this way, Srila Prabhupada is writing the preface to this new edition. Prabhupada wrote in his preface that although he was known for starting the Krishna consciousness movement in America, actually the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself. Giving all credit for his own achievements to his spiritual master, Prabhupada said that the only qualification he himself had was that he had tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is, without adulteration. So, excerpt from the preface. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he, a person, has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this, and he demands it. One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the whole world this central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. End of quote from the preface. As Prabhupada explained in his preface, he was publishing the full Gita manuscript to establish the Krishna consciousness movement more soundly and progressively. He would do this by presenting transcendental literature like Bhagavad Gita, but he would also have to go, as Lord Chaitanya said, to every town and village, either personally or through his agents, his disciples. And wherever he went, he would preach Bhagavad Gita to whoever would listen. Tomorrow, Prabhupada would leave Australia for a big pandal festival in Calcutta, then on to Moscow, Paris, Los Angeles. Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita that no servant is more dear to him than one who teaches Bhagavad Gita to the devotees. And Prabhupada, in all his activities, whether writing a preface, lecturing to the prostitutes and drug addicts, teaching a disciple to cook chapatis without burning them, or planning grand projects yet to come, was always teaching Bhagavad Gita, and therefore was always the dearest servant of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada stood before the deities of Radha Gopinath with folded hands. After less than a week in Sydney, he was leaving. He knew that the devotees here were not up to the standard required for worshipping Radha and Krishna, and he knew he was taking a risk, entrusting their worship to neophyte disciples. Yet, as an empowered Acharya and as the representative of Lord Chaitanya, he had to implant Krishna consciousness anywhere it might take root. The world was in desperate need. If his disciples followed the process he had given them, chanting, hearing, observing regulative principles, he knew they would quickly become purified. He had given an analogy. Although in material life, a man must first become a highly qualified lawyer before sitting on the judge bench, in Krishna consciousness, a sincere devotee is first allowed to sit on the bench, to become a brahmana, and later, by the mercy of the holy name and the spiritual master, he becomes qualified. The devotees in Sydney, however, were particularly immature, and Prabhupada made an extraordinary request of Radha Gopinath. Now I am leaving you in the hands of the mlechas. I cannot take the responsibility. You please guide these boys and girls and give them the intelligence to worship you very nicely. Sri Sri Gaurnitai ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev ki jai. So this is very extraordinary. How Srila Prabhupada is preaching from one country to another and preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita as Lord Krishna spoke it to Arjuna without any change. The objective of studying Bhagavad Gita is to become a devotee of the Lord. But all the editions which were available on the market, many hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita, most of them were having an impersonal explanation. Manmana bhava mad bhakta madhya jimam namaskuru mam evaishasi satyam te. So Lord Krishna is requesting Arjuna and all the readers of Bhagavad Gita to think of him, Manmana, to become his devotee, Bhava Mad Bhakta, and so on. So this is a clear message of Bhagavad Gita. But all the other editions were not emphasizing the need to become a devotee of Krishna. Even one commentator had told that it is not to Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, that we have to surrender, but it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna that we have to consider. So that is a general tendency of all the other commentaries. And in this way, the public was becoming very not understanding the real meaning of Bhagavad Gita. And it is Srila Prabhupada who gave the real meaning. And in this way, Prabhupada could make many hundreds and thousands of devotees of the Lord. Otherwise, many other sannyasis had come to America from India to give their philosophical message. But out of this preaching, nobody had become a devotee of the Lord. So that is the difference we should understand between the preaching of Srila Prabhupada and the preaching of all the other sannyasis belonging to different mats. Srila Prabhupada takes a risk. He is considering that these boys and girls in Australia are not mature, and how they are going to worship the deities of Radha Gopinath. But Srila Prabhupada is confident that they will be able to understand by the mercy of Lord Krishna if they follow the basic principles of chanting japa, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and taking Krishna Prasad and associating only with devotees and following the four regulative principles. So even if a neophyte in Australia or anywhere in the world follows these principles, then in course of time, they will be able to become Brahmanas. Although Srila Prabhupada is giving the Brahmin Diksha to some of them at the beginning, even though they are not yet qualified. But Prabhupada is hoping that in course of time, they will be reaching the Brahminical status. Here I remember that Prabhupada had come here and he was staying in the house of Panalal Piti at that time some persons, they wanted to meet Prabhupada, but they were not entering into the house of Panalal Piti. They were staying outside the house. And when Prabhupada came out of the house, they approached Prabhupada in a very angry mood, not at all appreciating what Srila Prabhupada was doing, preaching Krishna consciousness. They objected that, Swamiji, what are you doing? You are giving Brahmin Diksha to persons who are not qualified. So you are, in this way, you are destroying the Hindu Dharma. So they accused Prabhupada to destroy Hindu Dharma. Srila Prabhupada did not answer. He just went on his preaching activities and did not interact with these persons. So anyway, so the next place is Calcutta. Calcutta on the 13th of May 1971. Prabhupada arrived just in time for the 10-day Calcutta Pandal program festival. On his orders, Giriraj and Hare Krishna had come to organize the festival, just as they had the one in Bombay. Prabhupada had written to Jayapataka Swami, president of ISKCON Calcutta, except from his letter. In the Sankirtan festival pandal, if a very big kitchen arrangement can be made, then we shall distribute prasadam daily. Try to make this arrangement. Puri, halwa, kitri, whatever can be arranged as much as possible. Tamal Krishna and Giriraj have all the ideas. End of quote. Attendance surpassed that of the Bombay Pandal, with 20 to 30,000 people attending daily, including ministers of parliament and other distinguished speakers. It was one of the biggest religious functions Calcutta had ever seen. The whole city became aware of the strength of the Hare Krishna movement. In the early afternoon, the devotees would begin selling Prabhupada's books from a booth, performing kirtan on stage, and distributing prasadam to the masses. Around 6:30, the evening program would begin with a long, intense kirtan, which would increase in its fervor as Prabhupada arrived for the evening arati before the deities of Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada would lecture, sometimes in Bengali and sometimes in English. Afterward, the devotee would show slides of the Krishna consciousness movement around the world, and Prabhupada would answer questions from the audience. After the program, people would push forward to receive a morsel of the prasadam that had been offered to the deity. Naxalite terrorists threatened Prabhupada's life. These young communist terrorists, who had been active in Calcutta during Prabhupada's visit of 1970, had never disturbed him until now. Their tactic was to approach prominent businessmen in their homes or on the street and coerce them into cooperation with Naxalite political objectives. If a businessman refused, the Naxalites would burn his home or place of business or even assassinate him. The Naxalites, who were eager for all of Bengal to turn from their religious traditions and embrace communism, saw Prabhupada rekindling the religious spirit in Calcutta. Prabhupada's tremendous crowd-gathering pandal, they concluded, was undermining the principles of communism. Fly or die. Read the note Prabhupada received. He informed the police, who regretted their inability to help. The whole of Calcutta, they said, was in terror of the Naxalites. Prabhupada, however, refused to be intimidated. He would not fly. Even if they were to attack him, he said, what better way for Vaishnava to leave his body than while preaching the glories of the Lord. The next night, as Prabhupada came before the crowd to speak, he noticed a group of rowdy young men, Naxalites, near the stage. They were protesting the preferential seating of certain dignitaries on stage. When one young radical shouted that the radicals themselves wanted to dance on stage, the devotees invited them to join in a kirtan. The Naxalites backed down, but continued shouting and disrupting the meeting. They began banging the seats of the wooden folding chairs, calling out Naxalite slogans, and threatening to burn the place down. Others in the audience began talking nervously among themselves, increasing the commotion. In a vain attempt to bring order, some of the devotees threatened the dissenters. Pushing and scuffling broke out in the audience. Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhi rabhipalayantam. Prabhupada's voice rang over the powerful loudspeaker system, appearing uninterested in the crowd, depending only on Krishna. He began singing prayers from Brahma Samhita, and within minutes everyone quieted. Those who wanted to leave left, and those who wanted to stay sat down. The crowd subdued. Prabhupada lectured. Several more fly or die notes came, and the Naxalites returned the next night, threatening again to burn the pandal. Call them, Prabhupada said. I will meet with them. The devotees thought it unsafe, but Prabhupada insisted. In a small room behind the pandal, Prabhupada spoke with the hostile youth. They were angry and disrespectful at first, but as Prabhupada explained to them the very concept of communism, with Krishna at the center, he caught their interest. They agreed to allow Prabhupada's meetings to continue without any further disruptions. Achyutananda Swami says, the last night of the 10-day Pandal program was a grand final, with over 40,000 people attending. I had just stepped out to get sugarcane juice. The pandal was completely packed when I left, but when I got outside, I saw rivers of people flowing through the 4 main gates into the pandal tent. I thought this must be Krishna's mystic power, because the tent was already packed and still thousands of people were entering it. I thought that Krishna must be unlimitedly expanding the dimensions of space. End of quote. The climax of the evening was a big procession, beginning at the pandal and going up Park Street to the ISKCON Temple on Albert Road. The deities of Radha Govinda rode on a palanquin to the temple, where they were placed on the altar. After an arati in the temple, the remaining crowd dispersed. Achyutananda Swami was standing next to Prabhupada that night in the Calcutta temple. Prabhupada, he said, someone put Krishna's flute in backward. Prabhupada looked. It was backward. Krishna is all-powerful, he said, turning to Achyutananda Swami. He can play from the back end also. Srila Prabhupada was still striving for a plot of land in Mayapur. Having abandoned the idea that his godbrothers in Mayapur might help, he had been working through Bengali friends in negotiating with Muslim farmers in Mayapur. On returning from Australia, Prabhupada has sent Tamal Krishna to Mayapur with orders not to come back until he had purchased land. Tamal Krishna's mission was successful, and after 6 days, he returned to Prabhupada in Calcutta, having purchased 9 bighas, that is 3 acres in Mayapur. Conceiving the value of Mayapur was difficult for the devotees. However, one devotee journeyed from Calcutta to see the new ISKCON property, and on returning asked Prabhupada, "What are we going to do there? It's just a big empty field. Nothing is there." "Because there are no factories and cars," Prabhupada replied. "Therefore, you think there is nothing to do. But we are going to chant Hare Krishna in Mayapur. We will build a big temple there. And all the devotees in the world can go out and chant Hare Krishna in the place of Lord Chaitanya's birth." On May 28, Prabhupada wrote, excerpt from his letter, "You will be glad to learn that we have purchased about 5 acres of land in Mayapur, the birth site of Lord Chaitanya, and we have proposed to hold a nice festival there from Janmashtami Day for 2 weeks. At that time, the foundation stone will be set down. I wish that all our leading disciples come to India at that time. There are 50 branches, so at least one from each branch should attend the function." June 1971. For months, Prabhupada had been planning to visit Moscow. Aside from his desire to preach to the Russian people, he had a specific meeting in mind with a Russian Indology professor, Mr. G. Kotovsky. Professor Kotovsky headed the Department of Indian and South Indian Studies at Moscow's USSR Academy of Sciences, and Prabhupada had been corresponding with him for a year. Krishna Das in West Germany, with the help of a Dr. Bernhard of the University of Hamburg, had obtained the names of other Russian scholars of Indology. A letter to Krishna Das in December of 1970 had revealed Prabhupada's plans for preaching in Russia. Except from his letter, "I am very encouraged to see your enthusiasm for preaching this message to the Russian people, and your idea to send letters with the help of Dr. Bernhard is very good. He is a big scholar, and he also appreciates our movement. So if you arrange a tour of Russia for me, I am prepared to accept. Let us see that what Krishna desires. If we can go to Russia with our World Sankirtan party, I am certain that it will be very much appreciated, and people will see the real peace movement is chanting process, chanting the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So try for it." End of his letter. Srila Prabhupada had coached Krishna Das on how to best cultivate the Russian Indologist. Quote from his letter: "You can ask them some questions like, what is the ultimate goal of life? What is your ideal ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Why is religion accepted by all kinds of civilized societies? What is your conception of the original creation?" In this way, questions may be put to find out what is their standing. We do not grudge an atheist provided he has got some philosophical standing. In this way, try to elicit some answers from the professors. If you can finally establish one Moscow center, it will be a great credit to you. So far, studying Russian language, it is not necessary. But if you do so, it is all right. I want very much a center in Russia. So for the time being, I shall design that Moscow center. End of quote from his letter. In March 1971, Professor G.G. Kotovsky had replied to Krishna Das's letter, and from quotation from his letter. I thank you for your information about Swami Bhaktivedanta's lecturing tour. If he would come to Moscow, the Soviet scholars doing research in ancient Indian culture would be very happy to meet him in the Institute of Oriental Studies, USSR Academy of Sciences. I would be thankful to you for your information on the dates of Swami Bhaktivedanta's arrival and stay in the USSR. End of quote. Srila Prabhupada had personally replied to Professor Kotovsky, quote from his letter. It was understood that you and your university are interested in hearing about Krishna culture and philosophy. This ancient Krishna culture and philosophy is the oldest in the world or in the universe. At least, from a historical point of view, it is not less than 5,000 years old. Perhaps you may know that I have started this cultural movement since 1966, and it is already spreading all over the world. Krishna culture is so popular in India that even the government attracts many foreigners by Air India timetable to visit Vrindavan, the land of Krishna culture. Enclosed, please find one page from the latest Air India timetable, April 1971, wherein the Krishna culture is depicted for general attraction. My life is dedicated to spreading this Krishna culture all over the world. I think if you give me a chance to speak about the great Krishna culture and philosophy in your country, you will very much appreciate this simple program with great profit. This culture is so well planned that it would be acceptable by any thoughtful man throughout the whole world. End of quote. Having preached a year in the Eastern Hemisphere, Prabhupada was eager to return to the West, and he planned to fly to Moscow and on to Europe. For Prabhupada and his traveling companions, Shyam Sundar and Aravinda, getting tourist visas for Russia was simple. They would take a 5-day government-controlled tour, and with every activity planned by the Soviet Tourist Bureau and everything paid for in advance. Captain Lal, the pilot of the flight to Moscow, considered Prabhupada an important passenger and came back to visit him during the flight. They spoke of Prabhupada's movement, his chances for lecturing in Moscow, and of Bombay, where Prabhupada was trying to purchase land. Captain Lal invited Prabhupada to the cockpit, and Prabhupada came and sat behind the captain, asking technical questions about the equipment and the flight. Prabhupada and Captain Lal agreed to meet again in Moscow. Prabhupada, his secretary, and his servant cleared Soviet customs and immigration quickly and smoothly, and a government tourist guide escorted them by limousine to the Hotel National. The hotel near Red Square, Lenin's tomb, and the Kremlin was expensive but plain. Prabhupada found his room dingy and cramped, with barely space for a bed and 2 chairs. The room for Shamsundar and Aravinda was far away, and Prabhupada decided that Aravinda should share the room with him instead, crowding Prabhupada's room all the more. Aravinda told the hotel manager that they would not eat that hotel fare, but would have to cook their own meals. The manager refused at first, but finally allowed them use of the maid's kitchen. That problem solved, the next was getting food. Prabhupada sent Shamsundar out. Across the street, Shamsundar found a milk and yogurt store, but he returned to Prabhupada's room without any fruit, vegetables, or rice. Prabhupada sent him out again, and this time Shamsundar was gone practically all day, returning with only a couple of cabbages. Prabhupada sent him out the next day for rice. When Shamsundar returned with rice after several hours, Prabhupada saw that it was a poor North Korean variety, very hard. Prabhupada asked for fruit, but Shamsundar had to hike for miles through the city to find anything fresh, a few red cherries. Wherever Shamsundar went, he would have to stand in long queues to purchase anything. Usually, however, someone in the queue would notice that he was a tourist and bring him to the front of the line. Everything Shamsundar purchased was with coupons. Prabhupada remained peaceful and regulated, keeping to his daily schedule. He would rise early and translate, and in the cool of early morning, he would go out for a walk through the old but deserted streets. Prabhupada, wearing a saffron chadar, strode quickly, Shamsundar sometimes running ahead to photograph him. As they would pass Lenin's mausoleum, a queue would already be forming. Just see, Prabhupada commented one morning, that is their God. The people don't understand the difference between the body and the spirit. They accept the body as the real person. Prabhupada appreciated the sparseness of the traffic, some trolleys and bicycles, but mostly pedestrians. As he walked among the old ornate buildings, he saw elderly women crossing the wide streets. A good practice, he said. The Russian people appear to live structured, regulated lives, much more so than the Americans. These simple, austere people, unspoiled by the rampant hedonism so common in America, were fertile for Krishna consciousness, but devoid of spiritual sustenance, they appeared morose. So we can end here this reading. We can appreciate Srila Prabhupada's enthusiasm about preaching. Even he was not defeated by the Naxalites in Calcutta, although these Naxalites were actually criminals. They had already killed many big businessmen, and even the police were afraid of them. But Srila Prabhupada was confident that if they can hear for some time the kirtan, dancing, and Prabhupada's lectures, they would come down a little bit gradually. And this is actually what happened. At the beginning, they were making noise and shouting, "Fly or die." That was their formula. Fly means go to some other place. If you stay here, then we'll kill you. That was their motto. So Srila Prabhupada was confident about Krishna's message. So we can appreciate how Prabhupada was absolutely not afraid. He was confident that Krishna's message would pacify these Naxalites gradually. And Prabhupada, in this way, developed the idea to go to Russia, establish a center in Russia. I was told just a few days ago, somebody told me that now there are 60 centers, ISKCON centers in Russia. 60. I had the opportunity to meet the first Prabhupada disciple in Russia. I just forgot the name. Huh? Ananta Shanti. Ananta Shanti. First Prabhupada disciple from Russia. So he had come to Mayapur for the festival, and I had the great opportunity to speak to him a little bit about Prabhupada's mission in Russia. So he was, later on, he became a disciple after Prabhupada came to Moscow for the first time. And even Prabhupada was considering how he can preach. He is alone in Russia, such a big country, and the people are not favorable. And so Prabhupada thought maybe he should become Grihastha. That will give some security to this young boy. Otherwise, if he remains alone as a brahmachari, it will be very difficult for him to preach in Russia. So Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Paris, he saw one of the lady disciples who were not married. She was brahmacharini in the Paris temple. And Prabhupada thought that maybe she can go to Moscow and marry that Ananta Shanti. And this is exactly what happened. Prabhupada spoke to that lady, and Prabhupada could convince her, although she was not favorable, to go to Russia like that. But she was obedient. The main quality of the disciple, she was obedient to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada told her, you go to Moscow and you marry Ananta Shanti. And she did it. In this way, that was very wonderful how this couple, they started the preaching activities in Russia. So, okay, any other questions or comments? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam ki jai. Sri Satyarup Das Goswami ki jai.